Hello again. Here is some interesting old retro tech from the 1980s, and it's a Hitachi video disc player, model VIP101P. So this video disc player is very basic. It's got just a few buttons on the front here, a few indicators as well, and a big kind of long slot in here to take these video discs. Now, video discs are very different to laser discs because they use a stylus, a little bit like a record, in that it sits very close to the disc itself, and it turns what it's reading into a picture for us, which is great. So I thought I'd do a quick video to show you how one of these kind of works. Just before we look in this machine, we'll try to play a disc. This is what came with the machine. This is the original instructions for the VIP101P. So it talks to us in here about removing a special screw for the shipping. So basically the stylus, which sits inside here, was protected by a cover, and when you had this machine new, you had to remove that before you could do anything. So that's telling you about that there. So let's have a look at the front. So it's just telling us about the indicators. So there's a standby indicator. It also tells us in here how far along the disc it's got in terms of playing. So it goes up to 75. There's a disc slot. So you put the whole caddy in, the disc itself drops down. There's an indicator here on the actual side that you have to play. So basically these films you would have to change over because you wouldn't get a whole film on one side, a little bit like a laser disc, but obviously this is using a stylus. And just some buttons here. There's a pause and play. So the disc will, when you put the disc in to start with, it will start to play, but you can pause it and then resume the play. You've got a scan, a forward search. The reset is as good as saying stop, and it basically brings everything back, brings the disc up ready for you to take out the machine. So very basic, and you can see we don't really need too many pages to these instructions. So it talks about the connections. So there's actually a pass-through for the aerial. So because this is obviously going to work on the analog side of the TV, you need, well, it was advantageous to pass your aerial feed through this machine. So when you're not using this machine, you don't have to keep unplugging the separate aerial out of your set. So it would just pass through the signal from the aerial basically. So that's what that's about. There's also an adjustment here for the channel, so I've just left all that alone, and yeah, it's just giving you a little graphic there as well of what I was just talking about. So on this side it's telling us that we can replace the cartridge. Now back in the day you could have found one quite easily, but they are getting very, very rare now. So the model to find, CTG200. And this is telling us how to open up this lid, take the old one out, put a new one in. And then just telling us to be careful with these discs. You do need to keep them in a dry place. Don't keep them in a damp garage or anything, because that will do no end of harm to the discs, especially as they're kind of sat inside that sort of caddy. And there's a checklist there as well. Before you go to the trouble of sending everything back, it's actually just telling us here all the things you have to check to ensure that you are working the machine and you have the machine set up the correct way. So this is all very pre anything modern. Now the concept is quite clever, but personally I don't think it could have ever really taken off, just because of the sheer weight of the things. Holding one of these discs inside its caddy is pretty heavy, and I've got several of these, and I've got them in an old LP case, and yeah, it's just surprisingly bulky. I mean, getting on as being sort of double the weight of storing a similar laser disc, which obviously is in a standard sort of cardboard sort of paper sleeve. Okay, so let's have a look inside here. I'll just remove these discs off and just have a look and see what's inside. So this machine is all powered off at the moment, not connected, and it's got a little clip in here, and we can open it up and see the stylus. So the stylus is just sat inside. Got to be a bit careful with this, and you can see it's quite a long sort of stylus, and the actual point, the bit that does the pickup, is tiny, just right at the end there, so kind of free floating, and that's it really. So I'll put that back in carefully. There we go. There's also inside this machine, there's a little sort of pad that the stylus will drag across, and that basically keeps the stylus clean. So that's something else to just be wary of there. So let's just spin this round. For some reason got a very short lead on this one, so I have to use it with an extension. And we've got the model number here, made in Japan, and as we saw in the manual, we've got the connections on the back. Let's get this apart. I'm just taking the screws out now. 2 on the back and 1 on each side. With the screws taken out, we can have a go at sliding this cover off. And it just actually comes off like that, so that was straightforward. Now, I have taken one of these off before, and the reason why is all down to the rubber bouts, and you find that there's possibly a couple to change. Normally there's at least one to change, and the main one is this one here. So this is to do with the loading part of the disc, and then over here there's another bout inside here. Now this is what does the tracking of the actual stylus, so it moves the stylus across. And this machine in fact is made in a really nice way, a way that anyone can really work on it very easily. I've never had any issues here with anything on this board. So all original capacitors and components. So a very well engineered, if fairly simple to look at compared to some of the earlier VCRs which were full of electronics. Only a single layer board. They've squeezed an extra component on there, and various connectors on the back as well. So if you've got any issues, then it may be worth pulling all the connectors out, maybe giving things a bit of a clean and putting the connectors back in again, because things may have settled funny over a period of time. Let's try a video disc. So I've got one here. I'm going to try to put it in without disturbing the light source. So I'm trying to hold that for you. Okay, here we go. There's an indicator light just on here where my finger is, but you might not see that. So the reason why there was a funny sound there was because the bout I've got on the back I think is probably not quite the right one, the one that does the tracking, but it's very quiet and it's definitely tracking. You can see here, that's the pad I was talking to you about, the one that cleans the stylus. And here is a rather good shot of the disc itself playing. So I've just moved the board out of the way there, and the stylus is in this whole unit here is just moving across slowly and very quiet actually. that's the motor there that's driving this across. Every so often it will move a little bit. The tracking indicator here is very simple because it just basically sits on top of the actual arm assembly, which contains the starless, and then that just moves along very slowly. So let's see what happens when we try to do a reset. And there you are. See if I can get the disc out without without breaking anything. Success! And the whole thing is powered down again, so it's just got switches. You can leave it plugged into the main. So really good bit of kit here. Very interesting. Something that we won't see ever again, I don't think. A starless that's playing essentially video records. Well, I hope you enjoyed this short video, and I shall do some more in the future. Thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.